All right. Hopefully the clopping around upstairs, because it's for a bit there, it sounded like there was a horse upstairs, is done with, and I can get into this. So this weekend we had UFC Vegas 89. We also had Bellator on Friday. I'll quickly touch on the Bellator stuff because it wasn't really all that interesting, but I did make picks, so let's go through it. Corey Anderson beat Carl Moore. I called that. Pitbull stopped Jeremy Kennedy. I called that. Fabian Edwards defeated Aaron Jeffrey by unanimous decision. I called that. Leandro Higo defeated James Gallagher. I did not call that. I got that one wrong. That being said, if I may be blunt, I'm kind of happy about that because I've just felt that Gallagher is he's the grappling Conor McGregor. And what I mean by that is that he's basically trying to ape the McGregor kind of Irish gift of gab gimmick combined with this admittedly exciting but like overrated skill set that has holes in it that if you face off with people who can capitalize on them will do so. And him losing to Higo is like a nice affirmation of that. I didn't have a pick in the Sousa versus Wild fight. Sousa won via knockout in the first round. That's very, very cool. Kieran Clark won. Who else did I actually have a pick in? Nathan Kelly won by 40-second elbow. That's lovely. Also, Luke Traynor beat Grant Neal. I'm gonna have to start paying attention to Luke Traynor a little bit more because this is his first like really, really big win. He did beat Sullivan Cauley before this, who's pretty good as well. But he's now an 8-1 fighter. He is a 6'6", if I recall correctly, 81-inch reach light heavyweight, which is pretty damn huge. I mean, it's huge for any weight class, but like it's big for 205. Yeah, I think he might be going places. The only question, of course, becomes, given that he's fighting in Bellator championship series, I'm doing air quotes, I have no idea where that's going to be because this is not a real promotion. That's what it comes down to. It's just not a real promotion. So what are we doing as far as Bellator is concerned? And it's why I have very, very little interest in what they're doing right now because I'm interested in the various prospects that they have because they have a lot of them still. They have a lot of like very good fighters who, whether it's going to be in the PFL or whether it's going to be the UFC or maybe one fighting championship, are going to do things that are relevant in MMA's landscape. It's just they're not going to do them where they are now. It kind of feels like a regional promotion on steroids. I guess it feels like a comparative to KSW over in Europe. But that's kind of what Bellator is right now, which is a shame. We move on to UFC Vegas 89, which was an interesting card. I don't want to say that it over-delivered on what it was bringing to the table because, let's see here. What on this card over-delivered? What would I say over-delivered? I've got the wrong card up in Tapology because I am a genius. I'm kidding. Thug Rose versus Ribas was about what I thought it would be. Carl Williams versus Justin Taffa was slightly better than I thought it would be. Like, at least Taffa got some good shots in. At least we got an idea of what Carl Williams does when he gets hit. So I guess that's a positive. That's more than I expected to find out from that fight. Edmund Shabazian versus AJ Dodson was reasonably fun, but like at the same time, I think very uninspiring. And then you got Payton Talbot versus Cameron Simon. That was pretty good. That one over-delivered. I'll give that one. Yusuf Salal versus Billy Quarantillo. I'm sad because Yusuf Salal won. Not because Yusuf Salal won, because I like Yusuf Salal. I'm happy to see him back in the UFC. I didn't think he should be cut. But I'm sad because Billy Quarantillo lost. Padilla versus Penhedo was like exactly what I thought it would be, except ending in a submission instead of a knockout. Trey Ogden versus Kurt Hallball sucked. I was surprised there were a lot of people thinking that was going to be a good fight. Like, don't get me wrong. This is no disrespect. I love Kurt Hallball's fights. I even have a lot of time for the Trey Ogden like neutralizing experience, but like this combination was dull, and it was. Julian Erosa, Ricardo Ramos was like chaotic and crazy and fun, but like kind of expected it to be. Miles Johns, Cody Gibson was exactly what I expected to be. Yarno Aaron, Steve Wynn was, I don't want to even say better than what I thought it was be, but I was like very, very wrong on the result. We'll get more into that, but like that one fight of the night, that was a bit weird. Zheleznikova versus Rendon, I got wrong, but was like not particularly good. Severino Lima, we're gonna talk about that one. And Parkin versus Usman was about what I expected. Yeah, I think it's kind of like ballpark what I expected. Like certain fights were different, but like I don't really think any of them elevated the card beyond my expectations. It was a fine Apex card. I said in my predictions, I would have taken the Shabazian Dotson fight off for like a co-main event for Thug Rose versus Hibosh. That was a little bit more. I don't even want to say like relevant or anything, because relevant is the wrong word. What I would have wanted was something that was going to be, I'm struggling to come up with the word for it, but like that would have positive emotions associated with it. Because that was like the problem was is that you had Thug Rose and Edmund Shabazian on the same card, probably going to win in fights that they were supposed to win, but like they're both head cases. And it kind of just doubled down on what is a bad emotional feeling for a fan. In my opinion, if you were looking forward to those two fights, that's you. That's awesome. That's dope. But for me, I would have removed the Shabazian fight and brought in something, not even like not like a ranked fight, although a ranked fight would have been nice. A ranked fight on this card would have been nice, but like something that at least was like just kind of like an action-packed idea, exciting matchup, scintillating matchup. There you go. That could have served as a feel-good intro to the main event, which we did not have with Shabazian's fight and with Carl Williams versus Tafa. So let's get into this. Also, we had some trigger warning, whatever. I am going to get into the politics of Julian Erosa's like statement, so get ready for that. So Amanda Hibosh versus Thug Rose Namajunas. Essentially, Thug Rose, I thought, won the first two rounds pretty cleanly. I'm just going to look at the stats here real quick. She outlanded Hibosh fairly considerably. She had the control of the ground game that Hibosh was trying to bring into play, where she scored 2 takedowns, but she got reversed both times, ended up on bottom, only had like 18 seconds of top control as opposed to 3 minutes 55 through 2 rounds for Thug Rose. So Thug Rose won the grappling. She won the stand-up portion of the round, outlanding her in terms of total strikes and significant strikes in both rounds. Pretty easy. Third round comes around. Hibosh is, I think, losing the round pretty comfortably for a good chunk, but towards the end of the fight, or at the end of the round, not the end of the fight, she gets on top. She starts landing some elbows, landing some forearms, hammer fists, the usual ground and pound stuff. And she, in that 80 or so seconds that she has that top position, I think she definitely wins the round. That's the one round that I think is unanimously scored for Hibosh. Yeah. I'm looking at the scorecards of Mike Bell, Sal D'Amato, and Junichiro Kamijo. That was the round they all gave him. Somehow, D'Amato gave the second round to Thug Rose. Not to Thug Rose, to Hibosh. I think that's wrong. I don't think that that's like terrible. No, I do think that that's terrible, because like if you're going to give Hibosh a second round, which to be clear, I did. I gave Hibosh the 5th round, watching live. Which to be clear, I don't think you have to do. I think that's a push round. But I don't know how you give round 2 to Hibosh. I don't. She got outlanded, she got outgrappled, she got controlled for 2 minutes. I'm trying to remember if Thug Rose suffered any like damage, like a cut or something in round 2. Looking at my notes here. No, I've got nothing. I've got no like cut, no mention of her leaking, no mention of a effed up nose. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you get that. And then in the 4th and the 5th round, we kind of return to a slower paced version of rounds 1 and 2, frankly, where again, Thug Rose scored her only takedown of the fight in the 4th round, had 2 minutes and 4 seconds of top control time, a little bit of ground and pound, nothing too much. Ribas was actually more active on bottom, to be honest, when Rose was on top, landing elbows. Jared, no, I'm thinking John Koppenhaver, Jared Rollins style. But yeah, still like you got to give it to the top person as long as they're like active. 5th round was just kind of a lot of empty volume, no takedowns, no control time, sped at range, 25-26 in terms of strikes landed in favor of Thug Rose, winning by 1 strike. I scored the round for Ribas because I thought she had a little bit more impact, a little bit more pizzazz on it. I thought Thug Rose did win. There were a lot of people on Twitter that were not keen on Thug Rose winning this fight, and I'm not honestly sure why. I thought she won 2 rounds very clearly and probably run the 4th like pretty clearly, and then the 5th is a toss-up. Like, she lost the 3rd round and that was it. And there was a lot of talk of like damage and all that kind of stuff doing it. She was not significantly damaged. Like, this was not a fight where one fighter was landing leaf blower volume and the other one was like cracking really, really hard or something. Like, the power and the cleanliness of the strikes here were very, very similar, and Thug Rose outlanded her in every single round. So I'm having a hard time seeing like how that would go, minus the 3rd round, of course. But like outside of the 3rd round, the strikes landed were 35-30, 43-22, 45-29, and 26-25, all in favor of Thug Rose. And if you want to limit that to significant strikes, 23-16, 19-15, 10-7 for Ribas in the 4th round, and then 25-24 for Thug Rose in the 5th round. Yeah, I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see what the Ribas pro contingent really was seeing with this fight in terms of how you could score it for her. Now, did I think Thug Rose looked like a champion good? No. She looked flat. She's looked flat really since the Carlos Esparza fight. And don't get me wrong, it's 2 fights, this and the Manon Fiorot fight, where she messed up her hand. It's totally understandable that with the messed up hand and like the absolutely like accordion style finger she had, that she was obviously going to have problems in that fight. But at the same time, like, it's not inspiring for a former champion. Like, it's that kind of expectation that it's just not there. It's still good. It's still ranked flyweight status, probably. You went to decision with Manon Fiorot with 1 hand, essentially. Like, that's good. Manon Fiorot is a top 10, if not top 5 fighter in the division. But, I don't know. Like, I guess it's just that, like, she's talking about going for a title and all that. But I think that realistically, it's not going to happen at 125. Her power just means a lot less at 125. She's not, like, she never really successfully hurt Ribas heavily in this fight. I don't recall her hurting Fiorot particularly badly. Granted, Fiorot is like very, very durable and doesn't really get hurt by anybody, but still, there are just people who are going to be able to tank her best shots at this point. And I just don't know. Carl Williams versus Justin Top. Next fights. Thug Rose, I don't really know. I was looking at the rankings and like Macy Barber doesn't have a dance partner. And you could do Macy Barber versus Thug Rose at the Apex. You could even do it as a main event for a travel card. You could even put it on a pay-per-view main card. So like that does seem like the most utility-based pick for her next opponent. And then for Ribas, I've got the winner of Karine Silva versus Ariane Lipski. I think that would be actually pretty fun. But I do think like the same thing for Rose and Ribas kind of applies, is that to be the best fighters that they can be in the current weight cutting environment, the answer is that they just really need to sort out whatever's keeping them from being able to comfortably make 115, because they're not that big. Ribas is 5'3", Thug Rose is 5'5". 5'5" is not like unheard of at 155 or 125. Obviously, there's a lot of like 5'5", 5'6", 5'4", but at the same time, she's quite thin. So, and we know she can make 115. She was champion there. That does seem like her weight class, unless unless there's a change to like maximum weight cutting that goes globally into effect, which we will probably never see. And then for Ribas, 5'3" is just much too short for 125. But we'll go for it, I suppose. Carl Williams versus Justin Tafa. This was, like I said, this was better than I expected it to be, completely honestly. Justin Tafa at least did hurt Carl Williams in the first and the third round. That being said, he was taken down more or less at will. I mean, I think it was only like 7 of 12, so actually it wasn't too bad. He stuffed 4 takedowns in the third round when Williams, I think, was a little bit tired. But like once it went down to the ground, Tafa could not get back up. There was no shrimping. There was no game off his back. That was the fear, is that if this fight goes to the ground, it's just gonna stay there. It's just gonna stay there. And that was exactly what happened. So Carl Williams, congratulations on a solid performance, I suppose, with the wrestling and the takedowns. But it's against somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing. He showed a nice shuffle jab. I do like that development. There's like something on the feet. He's fast. He's explosive on the feet, but like his technique is still very, very lacking. And I think that very, very much caps him. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I guess Curtis Blades is a guy who has gone really, really high in the division off of not being a bad striker, but being a very fragile striker. So I guess there's nothing really stopping him. There was one round on 2 cards that was scored for Tafa, which was the third, which I do agree with. Tafa hurt Williams bad enough in the third round and had him very much clinging on for dear life that I do think that overwhelms any kind of top control or work that Williams did in almost 4 minutes on top. But yeah, he landed 8 significant strikes in that round. So like, granted, Tafa only landed 6, but still, Tafa had him on Dream Steed. So I have no problem with that card going to Tafa, at least in the third round. Williams, I've got against Martin Budai. He is a big dude who can wrestle a little bit. That makes the most sense. And then for Tafa, just give the man a banger. I was talking with someone on Twitter about this, and I was talking about the Tafa's anti Tuivasa, and there's probably other fighters that this applies to from the islands. At the end of the day, these guys can't wrestle. They shouldn't be put into like serious heavyweight battles. They should just be given bangers. Let them go out there and bang. And there you go. I'm not really terribly concerned about like who it is. Edmund Shabazian versus AJ Dodson. This was a fight that started very poorly for Shabazian. Surprisingly enough, Dodson was doing like these like little like 3 pieces. They weren't super clean. They were like partially blocked and so on. But like I like it. It was like bringing a pace. It was bringing aggression. It was bringing physicality to Shabazian. Something he has historically not responded to terribly well. So that was very impressive to see. Shabazian was trying to work his own jab, obviously, but there was not a lot of success there. And the combos were really starting to make it problematic for Shabazian. He changed his level into a knee. He gets like seriously clipped. He gets hurt. He gets a takedown from the clinch, of course, because Dodson, not a great wrestler. That is the problem. Dodson did manage to out-scramble him, got back to his feet, though. Actually, it wasn't even get back to his feet. He got on top of Shabazian. Didn't do a lot, though. And Shabazian actually is the one that scrambles to his feet. Puts Dodson on the fence, starts looking for a takedown, fails, trying like these ugly like manhandle throws, like the sort of stuff you see on the playground when people are trying to wrestle and they don't really know how to wrestle. And then he just drops him and pounds him out. And Shabazian afterwards was like, I was in dog shape. I don't know if that was good or bad. Does he mean that he was in terrible like dog crap shape, or does he mean that like he had that dog in him? I don't know which one it was. Like that was weird. Anyways, so the goods for Shabazian. All right, he faced adversity and he came through the other side with a victory. That's cool, but at the same time, when he was facing that adversity, he didn't have like smart solutions. Like, for example, he got the takedown, he got swept. He got the clinch towards the end there against the cage, tried to manhandle him, couldn't get him down. Very, very sloppy technique and so on. And then he just melted him. And it's like, all right, you've got power, you've got physicality. He's got all the physical gifts that you need. Like, he's a durable fighter. He's got good cardio when he doesn't like stress out and break down. He's got power. He's got durability. He's got reasonably good physical durability. It's all mental. It's all mental. Putting it together and like actually applying the technical game that he does have and fighting hard throughout the entire fight. I don't think that this fight really tells us anything about that, other than like he didn't crumble when things went bad. So there is that. I've got Bruno Ferreira for his next opponent. That's a physically imposing fighter with good power and so on. And that's, I think, unfortunately, that's kind of where we are with him. Like, just putting him in there against dudes who are dangerous but are not very good, and just hoping that he can continuously survive a little bit of adversity. And for Dodson, I've got Dana White Contender Series guys. He's just not that good. Like, he's a reasonably good 185 athlete, truthfully. And this was probably the best he's looked all through his run. But there's just nothing great about him. He's like very much a jack of all trades, master of none, reasonably good athlete, which makes him an excellent, excellent gatekeeper for the Contender Series guys. But unfortunately, it just doesn't really give him much like upward mobility. Payton Talbott versus Cameron Simon. This was good. Payton Talbott, welcome. I was not on the hype train. I was suspicious. I was nervous. He's a little bit too one-dimensional. He's a little bit too can-crushy. Beating Nick Aguirre and having problems with Nick Aguirre at various points is a little bit concerning. But like, he came out here and Simon had no answers for him. He beat this man senseless. I don't even really care about the stats for this one, but like, I want to look at them just to see how one-sided it was. 59-31 in significant strikes in the first round, 20-0 in the second round. Payton Talbott beat this man up. He showed great variety. He showed power. He showed restraint. There wasn't an over push to get the finish at times when that could have easily been there. It was great activity. I mean, 79 significant strikes in a 5-minute and 21-second period is very goddamn impressive. Do I still worry about the wrestling? Absolutely. I absolutely still do worry about the wrestling. Cameron Simon went 0 for 3 on takedowns here, but Cameron Simon's not a takedown artist. Still, this was an amazing, good performance for Cameron Simon. Or not Cameron Simon, Payton Talbott. Give him the applause. And I still think he does need to go to a new gym at some point and get the proper training. I still worry about his wrestling. I still worry about his grappling. But the dude is super athletic and super fun to watch. I am excited. Bring it on. I am ready for fight number 3. And for that matter, I'm going to go lazy and give him a fight against a winner from this card, Miles Johns. Why? Because Miles Johns has a little bit of wrestling. He has physicality. He is tough. And that does seem like the test that is appropriate at this moment. For Cameron Simon, I've got Taylor Lapilus because I think that would be a pretty fun fight. Billy Quarantillo just got beat up by Yusuf Zalal. I did not see that coming. I was a little bit worried coming into this fight. I was like, I can't pick against Billy Q here. He's beaten better guys than Zalal. Zalal's not the athlete that usually gives him the absolute shutdown. I've got to go with it. But yeah, no. Zalal went out there and he did the job. He worked the takedowns 2 for 2. Bit of top control, got the rear naked choke eventually. Completely swarmed Quarantillo with volume and effectiveness, and Quarantillo could not punch with him. Could not punch with him at all, and Zalal just overpowered him. I wish I could give Zalal like more credit here because, frankly, this is an incredibly good performance for a short notice fighter who got cut from the UFC. Should never have gotten cut, in my opinion. But there's not really much else to say. He just bullied Billy Q. I don't know if this means anything for him like going forward, because the problem is that Yusuf Zalal, well, I shouldn't say Zalal, Quarantillo always gets bullied a little bit at the beginning of fights. The only difference is that usually he survives, he makes you tired, he weaponizes his cardio. And we didn't get to the point where that was like applicable, and he just got crushed. So I don't know what it means, because there just isn't. It's one of those things where, like, you're fighting Billy Quarantillo. There's not a lot of Billy Quarantillos in the UFC. There's never going to be a lot of Billy Quarantillos in the UFC. So what does it mean? To that end, I've got Zalal against Ricardo Ramos, who fought on this card, because Ramos is a physical fighter who is just a mess. And Zalal is a guy who I question the physical high side of, but I really, really, really like his approach to fighting. Like, there's good volume and there's a good mix-up of takedowns and stand-up in his game. So make that happen. If he can clear Ramos, that would probably clear up some of the problems realistically that he's facing, because the issue for Zalal is that, of course, he did lose a lot in the UFC. He lost 3 straight fights to Ilia Topuria, Soo Choi, and Sean Woodson. Those are all very, very good, very imposing fighters. And then he had a draw with Devon Blackshear. Those are all pretty physical, like, imposing fighters, or have odd physicality. Sean Woodson isn't necessarily a great athlete, but he is super tall for the weight class, and it's very, very awkward to deal with. So he kind of needs to go out there and beat someone, because the guys he has beaten, Austin Lingo, Jordan Griffin, Peter Barrett, and now Billy Quarantillo, they're all on the low end of athleticism for 145. At some point, he's got to beat somebody who's got a little bit more physicality, a little bit more panache. And for Quarantillo, I've been calling for the Bill Algeo fight forever. It continues. Luis Penuelo just got absolutely overwhelmed by Fernando Padilla, and I kind of expected this. Like I said, the only thing that was different here was that at the end of the day, Padilla gave him the Darce choke victory instead of knocking him out. But he knocked him down. He outlanded him badly. He was overpowering him. He was bullying him. And this was kind of my question when Penuelo came off the Contender Series, is I'm like, he's got no defense. His defense is quite bad, and he's used to being able to just bully people on a physical level, and he's not that physical. He's not that athletic. He's not that big. He's big. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not big. For 145, being 5'10" is, ample. But you're going to run into bigger dudes like a 6'1", 76-inch Fernando Padilla, and you're going to get your crap pushed in. And yeah, that is what happened. I don't have a lot more to say other than, if you missed this fight, go watch it. Because along with the Payton Talbott versus Cameron Simon fight, this was the performances of the night. They got the bonuses too, but these were the star-making moments. Anyways, that's all I got to say about that one. For Fernando Padilla, I've got Daniel Pineda. I think that would be incredibly fun. And for Penuelo, I've got Dana White Contender Series, gatekeeper, because my guy's just not that good. Trey Ogden versus Kurt Hollabaugh was basically Hollabaugh pressuring Ogden pretty effectively up into the cage, and then getting taken down and controlled and outlanded on the ground, and outlanded in, I think, every round. Yup. 2 of these rounds had single-digit strikes, significant strikes landed by both guys. It's not good. And it had 4+ minutes of top control in 2 rounds, 11 minutes and 9 seconds overall for Ogden. I wasn't excited about this fight coming in. I'm not excited about it now, and I don't really want to talk about it. Ogden mentioned that was 7 straight wins for Marathon MMA. Miles Johns ran earlier in the night. He's also from that gym. I've got Chris Duncan for him, because Chris Duncan is an active, aggressive dude who might be able to provoke a actually decent fight out of Trey Ogden. And for Hollabaugh, I've got Steve Garcia, because just give Hollabaugh people that'll brawl with him, please. Please, 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 please. He's 37. Let him have 37-year-old, cruise off into the sunset things. Ricardo Cajamos was looking pretty good, and then he got guillotined. I don't have much more to say about that. Erosa was using a nice front push kick early on to keep the range or whatever, but Ramos still swarmed him, still dropped him with an overhand. I don't know. Did he get credited with a knockdown? Didn't get credited with a knockdown. Probably should have. He did put him down, and then he gave him the old elevate and slam, and ended up right into a guillotine. Pardon me. There was a part where Erosa got back up and staggered him, and then got the guillotine. But still, I'm happy being a father to Erosa. But all right, here's where we get political. After the fight, this was at the press conference. He had a deal where he called out Leah Thomas to he's like, I will transition and fight Leah Thomas in MMA. I'm inviting Leah Thomas to transition to MMA from swimming. I'm going to be clear here. I don't honestly take any issue with people who have concerns or even have made up their mind that like trans women competing in sports is unfair, because I don't think that I don't think we have a scientific study, and I'm open to reading some, but the ones I have read are not very conclusive that there is, within a relatively short period of transitioning, no advantage. No, I've read studies that say like 6 years out that there is effectively no advantage in terms of muscle density, bone density, and so on after you have transitioned, although there are statements about things like sinew strength, which would be things like grip strength, so like BJJ and stuff, would perhaps be a lasting advantage that they would have. And then there are, of course, ideas that like if you don't go through puberty and you go on puberty blockers, you can be just physically, athletically speaking, the gender that you have chosen. That a trans woman would not have an advantage over a biological born woman if they went through the puberty blockers thing. But like Leah Thomas didn't go through puberty blockers. It is a transition as a young adult that we are talking about here without puberty blockers being involved, and obviously a background in swimming. So I have no problem with people who think that that's unfair or whatever. But the conversation that has come out of this is like people going, he's right, he's totally right. Like, transphobic? No, he's not transphobic. He's just talking the truth. I'm like, this is absolutely like just clout chasing. Like, this is Erosa going out there and making a ridiculous call out that, one, not going to happen. Two, if your issue is transgender women shouldn't compete in athletics, the proposal here is we have an MMA fight between two transgender women, one of which has a background in MMA and would be transitioning like for this fight. Like, would be freshly transitioning, I guess, that would like have all the theoretical advantages that the right wing says that a transgender person would have in competing against a woman. And that's what you want. Like, it's stupid. Like, it would have made more sense, and I've been, air quotes, better if he just went on a transphobic rant instead of getting this whole ridiculous idea of like, well, you know what? I'll transition and fight her. It's insane. It's unfortunately just part of this like circus that MMA is becoming, where like, how do you get noticed? How do you get your name in the news? How do you get your 15 minutes of fame? Say something incredibly reactionary right wing or incredibly reactionary left wing. Like, obviously the fan base of MMA is very, very reactionary to both sides. There's not a lot of like centrist. Anyways, that's all I have to say about that fight, I guess. Erosa versus Muhammad Naimov. Zalal versus, Ramos versus Zalal, like I said. Cody Gibson just got outpowered by Miles Johns, essentially. He won the third round, I thought. Let's have a look at the stats real quick. Yeah, I would say the stats support my my conclusion there. He just couldn't really hurt Johns. Johns could hurt him. Like, that is essentially what it comes down to. All three judges went 30-27. I don't necessarily disagree with that, though I did score the third round for Gibson. I thought this was the problem, is that like Cody Gibson fights in a way that doesn't really maximize his reach. He's not a great athlete. He's fighting a guy who is, despite being a really, really limited fighter, a good athlete, a good powerful athlete. And Johns took him to school. I didn't take him to school, but conclusively beat him. Like I said, I've got Johns against Talbot, and then I've got Gibson against Guido Canetti if he's still around. I kind of hope he is, because I think that would be a really fun fight. Yarno Aarons versus Steve Wynn was so weird, because essentially Yarno Aarons is a super low output guy, and he came out here and he put up more strikes in this fight, 105 significant strikes, for a guy who had like 50 in his prior two UFC fights. I don't even know what this means. He also got his leg like kicked out from under him like 40 seconds in. Like, he was getting calf kicked. It was like really bugging him, and he just kept going. There were finger warnings in this one. There were cage grab warnings. There was a low blow. Wynn never really got going, and I thought lost all three rounds. The only thing I'll really say is that like Aarons was like showboating a lot in a fight where like he was winning, he was doing good work. I'm not gonna complain about that, but it was a little lame. There you go. So I don't know. What does this mean? Does this mean Aaron's has kind of like fixed his like low output game and like can take his grab bag skills to actually doing good things? I don't know, but he got an extra 50 G's for fight of the night. So did Steve Wynn. I just don't know what it means. I honestly don't know what it means. I mean, it means bad things for Wynn, I think, who I've got against Dana White Contender Series guys as a result. But Aaron's I've got against Gaston Bolaños because that would be a fun random fight. And then you had Daria Zheleznikova beating Montserrat Rendon. I don't have a lot to say about this fight either. Rendon looked very, very slow on the feet, which I expected. She lost the first round, I think, pretty... you know what? Actually, I think I scored the first round for her. No, I scored the second round for Rendon. I scored the first and the third for Zheleznikova. Zheleznikova outlanded her badly really in all three rounds, although in the second round it was only 24-18. And I thought in the second round, Rendon busted up her nose and landed some cleaner shots. I would not really take any issue with that round going to Zheleznikova as well, but it looks like the judges probably agreed with me. No. Okay. Oh man, the judges actually were more confident giving the first round to Rendon. Interesting. Mike Bell and Junichiro Kamijo giving the first round to Rendon, second and third to Zheleznikova. It's Sal D'Amato, which makes me feel very, very bad about my scorecard, who had the second round for Rendon. A couple of Ryan Frederick of Wrestling Observer and Dane Fox of the MMA Draw had Rendon winning, which the Frederick card, which is 30-27, is just wrong. I respect Ryan Frederick, but what are you doing? And the 28-29 card for Rendon is also a little bit weird. I don't know. What did this do for me in terms of like long term, I guess? These are two women that are like part of the rebuild of the 135 roster a little bit here. Rendon is very, very slow, both foot slow and hand slow. That's a big limitation. She needs to work on her finding the range and being able to like basically swing and cling. She needs to get to the clinch where she is quite strong. And her top game is quite good. If not, it's lacking in any kind of little danger, but like it is locked down. So she can win fights because there's a lot of women that she can just kind of outmuscle, but she's going to have to learn a way to get into the clinch really effectively. And for Zheleznikova, my concerns are kind of the same. She still has to kind of do everything, and she's not necessarily all that great at anything. She's got skills everywhere. She's well-rounded, which does mean that regardless of who you put her up against, outside of the very, very top of the division, there is a path to victory against just about anybody because there's very few well-rounded fighters in this division. And she's 5'9". She's like legitimately sized, reach, and whatever. I wish I had gotten the reach advantage she had. If she had one. Does UFC Stats have that? Reach. Rendon versus Zheleznikova. 68-inch reach for Rendon. Still, 68. 68-inch reach for Zheleznikova. There you go. Yeah, that'll be, it's not huge, but like that'll be probably an advantage over most people. And she can make use of that. Like, but I don't know. There's a lot of learning, a lot of like, a lot of work to be done. But the base skill set and physicality notes are there. That's, I guess, what I would say. Zheleznikova rematch with Melissa Mullins if Mullins loses to Nora Komore, or Tainara Lisboa could be an option. And for Rendon, I've got Irina Alexieva because that's a clinch grappler like battle right there. And then we got Igor Severino versus Andre Lima. I thought Severino won the first round. I thought he was putting it on. He was putting on the pace. He was, I think, well ahead in terms of like strikes landed. And not well ahead. It's closer than I thought it was. But he was outlanding Lima, which was a concern of mine. Lima fights at a relatively slow pace. And he was able to bully him in the clinch and so on. And then he bit him. Like, and I don't mean that, like, the commentary booth was talking about, like, sometimes you get bit when you're going for, like, a rear naked choke or any kind of choke, really, which is absolutely true. You'll be, like, trying to shoot the arm through under the neck. And instead of under the neck, you'll get in the mouth and, like, yeah, even through, you know, it's not much because there's a mouth guard there or whatever. And you'll get bit or whatever. But this was, like, All right, let me try and describe this. This was Lima being like face to the fence with Severino with the rear waist lock, and then he bit him on like the underarm near the armpit. Like, there is no excuse for this. They were also getting warned for all kinds of like grabbing of the gloves, grabbing of the cage, fingers to the eyes. Like, this was a very dirty fight. And Severino ends up biting him, gets DQ'd. There's a discussion about, hey, should this be a point taken away? Should this be 2 points taken away? Should this be a warning? A warning for biting? What are you doing? I thought, no, you got to DQ someone off this. This was a bite, and not like not a bite like I think it was John Manley bit somebody in the Ultimate Fighter, or maybe it was John Manley who got bit. It was the Roy Nelson Shane Carwin season. Someone got bit. I'm pretty sure John Manley was one half. It was John Manley versus James Chaney, I think, and one of them bit the other. And that was, the thing. And then, like, obviously you have Wes Sims versus Mike Kyle, where Mike Kyle built Wes Sims. This was like not like a panic choke moment. This was not an errant arm in the mouth moment. This was not like even like Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler when Chandler's fish hooking Poirier. This was not even that. This was, you bit this man on the underarm while you had rear waist lock control. This is the worst bite, maybe the worst foul I have seen in ages. This has to be a DQ. And he gets cut. And that's a shame because he's 20 years old and like he was a legitimate prospect in this division. I was excited to see where he would go. I was ready for I was ready for big things for Hugo Severino. This probably ruins that. I don't know. They did bring back Husmar Palhares after some of his stupidity. So we'll see. We'll see. As for what's next, Lima versus another one, Dana White Contender Series alum. He was getting better as the fight goes on, but I really, really do think he needs to pick up his pace and like probably have a really hard fight or even lose to really get him to unlearn some of the kickboxing oriented stuff he has. And then we had Muhammad Usman versus Nick Parkin. Usman had a big moment early when he like bullied Parkin to the cage. He was throwing good combinations, digging to the body, going upstairs. It was beautiful. And then he never did it again. And that was kind of the frustration thing about Usman, is that if you were to compile a highlight reel of Usman's fights, you would find a lot of material to work with. But if you watch any one of those fights, you're just like, this guy is athletic, but there is like nothing here. And he's bizarrely like stiff and uncoordinated. That was the rest of this fight. Parkin just outlanding him, doing better work. They would trade jabs, but Parkin would actually have like a counter lined up afterwards. And he was also beating up Usman's legs with the calf kick and doing his thing. And it was good to see this from Parkin because at least he, went out there and looked more like the guy who fought Jamal Pokes than the guy who fought Kai Machado, which is good because the guy who fought Kai Machado was bad. So that was good to see, and good to see him roll through there. But I don't know. It's just like kind of like Usman is just like a really, really flawed fighter who has a tremendous physical base to work with and is probably more athletic than most of the division, but is just not very good. I have in my notes here like 3 times. If Usman would just commit to throwing combinations and going forward like he did in the first round, he would probably win this fight. And he just never did. He settled on just basically going 1-for-1 with Parkin and then letting Parkin fill the rest of the space with the occasional counter and a lot of low kicks. So yeah, I'm wondering what were the official strike numbers for this fight. 72-57 overall, 16-15 in the first round, 20-18 in the second round, 36-24 in the third round. That's significant strike numbers. And then in total strikes, which I imagine are not terribly different, and they are not. Yeah. Essentially what it boils down to is like Usman was connecting at 31, 35, 35% rates. Parkin 40, 48, 52. As the fight went on, Parkin was able to land more and more at will. Usman was missing more and more, essentially. and never really got through his head that like the success he had in the first round was when he decided to go forward and throw combos. And he never did that again. Kind of curious here. What was the scores? Every judge did give Usman the first round. I like that. I do like that. But at the end of the day, not the most promising of fights for Usman. Parkin was surprised he wasn't wrestled by Usman. That was kind of cool. He was talking about how he was using use of angles and calf kicks. So like he did the game plan. He went out there and he implemented. I've got Andrei Arlovsky next for him because that's one of the few fights that like with Arlovsky would actually ask questions. And for Usman, I've got Hamdi Adel Wahad, who I think got busted for PEDs. So hopefully he's back soon because he was a reasonably interesting like wrestler type that you could do. You could also, I guess, maybe do Carl Williams, but like I think Carl Williams has moved beyond this. So that was the fight card. I hope you enjoyed. Check out the links down below to get to my Discord, my social medias, my video gaming stuff. The MMA Simulator just pumped out Discord MMA 8, where we had a really cool knockout in the main event, and the title was defended by our champion Rory, who is a monster. And that's about all I have to say, guys. I'll be back next time for, I think it's a travel card next. It's a fight night, but it's not at the Apex, is what I think. Am I wrong? UFC Fight Night. Yeah, Atlantic City Boardwalk Hall. Manon Fiorot versus Aaron Blanchfield. That's a fight I'm looking forward to with Vicente Luque and Joaquin Buckley. Chris Weidman, sadly, on the card. Chidi Njokuani, Reese McKee. I thought McKee. It's Njokuani going down to 170. You got to be kidding me. Nursultan Ruziboev is on the card. Bill Algeo, Kyle Nelson, Verna Jandaroba versus Lucy Pudilova. Or not Lucy. Lupita Godinez. What the heck am I doing? Andre Petrosky versus Jacob Malkoon. And the rest is kind of filler. Although Nate Landwehr, Jamal Emmers is a good fight. And I am a fan of Julio Arce and Melissa Gatto, who are both on the card. The rest is a little bit fillerish. But for a fight night, for a non-pay-per-view, this is pretty dope.